back to the Hearthstone Global Games. It's Europe versus Asia one more time. It's China versus France.
It is. China, of course, Asia geographically, but in terms of Hearthstone, it's its own thing.
Sure.
Meaning it's one server versus a small part of the best server.
Yes, it's... It's funny when you look at it that way because, I mean, China is a big country. There are a lot of Hearthstone players in China. There are a lot of Hearthstone competitions that take place exclusively in China.
Yep.
These guys have experience.
They do indeed, and they are very powerful players. It always seems when we see the HCT events that the Chinese players haven't done as well as maybe from the other three servers, from the other three regions. But I think part of that is their lack of experience in such situations. And when you've got a team all together like we have here, as we can see now, then we can, they can get together. They don't need the experience so much because they've got the skill to go with it.
King Lee, Trunks, Ulov, and Omega Zero versus Swids, Calax, Odemium, and Windella. We can't say enough good things about France. France, we are sorry that we did not pick you.
I'm not sorry, Dan.
Okay, Lorinda almost picked you and for some reason is not sorry, but the rest of us are sorry we did not pick you. You are clearly one of the dominant forces in this tournament. And hey, this is the 1-0 bracket. Both China and France did win their first series last week.
And talking of worldwide experience, the French team have amassed nearly 200 tour stop wins this season alone, if you count qualifiers.
200?
Yeah, they're basically on, I mean, I've registered 197 and I haven't caught up yet, so I think they're probably over 200 tour stop match wins.
Are you sure you've not added a 0 in there somewhere?
Well, it's how it feels.
20.
That's best of 5. That's not 200 games, that's 200 matches that they've won. They haven't lost that many. They're running at sort of mid-60s% over those 200 wins. They're just killing people. They've basically got 50 each. And that's how 200 divided by 4 works, I know. But 50 is a huge number, and all 4 of these have been winning a lot. Let's have a look at how this one's going to go down there.
Oh, would you look at that? Druid and Shaman banned immediately, just like the first game that we cast today, and like much of what we've seen. Now, I had a chat with Odemian just before we went live with this series, and he was telling me their strategy was specifically to counter China. Last week, China won with very heavy control decks, and this year, France figured that China would bring very similar, as it did so well, heavy control decks. So France's strategy is anti-aggro, anti-control. If you've looked at the deck lists, you'll find Kingsbane Rogue, even Paladin, being 2 of the decks that Odemian described to me as decks which are there to beat control.
What is this, a Kalento stream? Anyway, looks like they're going to get to play their Hunter, which is the talk of the day, whilst they have managed to get rid of the China Hunter. So, with that strategy in mind, let's see how that all works out on this screen.
I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not going to get to see the China Hunter because it's Death Rattle, it's Egg Hunter, but with secrets. It's something that we were talking about a little bit over the weekend as to whether or not you can find room for that secret passage there. But yeah, as you can see, no Hunter on China's side. Omega Zero with Odd Paladin versus Odemian's Kingsbane Rogue to start off the series. Now, hang on a second. Didn't I just say that that Rogue is in there to beat control?
Yeah, and Paladin is fantastic at... Yeah, okay.
Hitting you in the face.
Awkward.
Call that control, particularly.
Definitely not the matchup they were looking for with that deck at all. But if they're trying to beat control, then they've left Paladin up. Then obviously China's lineup was changed enough to force that to happen.
Now, I don't know how good your recent experience is with Kingsbane Rogue.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be honest, I was playing it all week. No, I wasn't playing it all weekend. Kingsbane Rogue is not a deck I've played a lot of. It's a deck, though, that France have worked very hard on putting it together. They built it from scratch for this tournament, and they wanted to have their best shot against control. We'll have to see how well they can do against Odd Paladin, though, as we start game number 1.
Let's see if they enjoy their 4 turns of carefully crafted Kingsbane Rogue. I'm never, ever going to say that again.
Kingsbane Rogue?
Hey, at least there's an R in there somewhere.
I mean, this deck does run 2 copies of Fan of Knives. As you can see, it runs a Vanish. It does run a second Vanish as well. It runs a Gluttonous Ooze that can deal with a Flying Cleave. It runs 1 Blade Flurry. That's another board clear.
The problem with all those things, and yes, they work, is they're only temporary solutions. So you've got to make sure you keep doing this. Otherwise, the Paladin just does it all again. Not a bad looking hand, though, here for Odemian. He's definitely got a chance.
So, I mean, when you look at this matchup, my gut is telling me, yeah, there's no way that this rogue has a chance. They're just dead on turn 4. Leeching Poison is a card that can save them and sort of buy them a little bit more time if they're gaining 1 health every time they swing in with the weapon. I guess they have started with Kingsbane on 1. That's something, right?
Yeah, and China have got a slow start, so yeah, maybe this Fan of Knives will be able to buy some time because the Champions Maul is not the card they really want to dodge this Fan of Knives with. And who knows, maybe a prep fan Gluttonous Ooze turn beckons at some point just to snatch the board and wipe out all the opposing threats. But now that sprint, maybe a better use for the prep later on.
Yeah, this turn is pretty bad, right? Like, Ademian doesn't want to dagger up. And what else has he got?
Not a lot. He's going to have to... What he's got is the 24 cards remaining in his deck. So needs to put a bit of time into that one as we see Belgium going 2-0 against Croatia. And Croatia very unlucky to lose last week against Ukraine.
Yeah.
Belgium one of the surprise losses, really. So Croatia going to be unfortunately likely 0-2.
And that's in the 0 and 1 bracket. So it's not a loss that either of those teams wants too badly. Odemian really thinking about things here. I wonder if he's ever considering prepping out the Fan of Knives, but that feels like such a waste of...
Yeah, the ideal turn to use the fan is turn 4 before the mighty 5-drops kick in.
Sure.
Yeah, the level up and the buffs. So
Fungal Mancer.
The Fungal Mancer, thank you very much for that. But obviously now he's picked up the preparation and the sprint and the fan, he has a decision to make as to how he's going to go about making that work.
I wonder.
Because the sprint could save him if he gets the right stuff from it to get defensive.
It's true. What Odemian wants, he wants the weapon buffs, he wants the life steal on the weapon. He wants the second Fan of Knives, he wants the Vanish. That could buy him some time later on as well. It's a struggle to get to that part of the game though, as now, okay, now we have a game on our hands.
Getting there, right? Still needs a buff maybe to go with it, but it's getting there. Like you say, it's a game on our hands because there's things that are starting to fall into place. And China are going to have a problem if they walk into Vanish at this rate as well.
It's kind of difficult to justify not playing the Fan of Knives here, but then again, there's no Boisterous Bard in the deck, so there's no way of buffing all of these minions' health by 1. It's just the Divine Shield unidentified Maul that he has to think about, but he's not going to play around. He's going to wait and do what you said, play the Fan of Knives immediately before these big turn 5 buffs come down, and as we can see, he's going to be rewarded for that. This is much more of a game than I anticipated.
Interesting play there because of how it all fits together. Obviously not attacking him because he has Fan in hand, but now China know he has Fan in hand.
Okay.
If you're trying to take this damage off the board, you need to get rid of this 1-1, then you get into another 1-1 next turn, try and prevent some turn 5 shenanigans, or at least lessen the damage. But China are now aware that France have something lined up for these 1-1s.
So this play, if they're expecting the Fan of Knives to be there, there's no way of playing around it. I suppose it's just Hero Power pass? Maybe Hero Power Argent Squire, Blessing of Might on the Argent Square. It's not really doing much, is it?
No, nor's the Champion's Maul, but with the Champion's Maul in hand, they've got Vine Cleaver. So they've got to start counting when that's going to be used. They've got time, but again, now they're running into, well, what do we do turn 5? And if we play turn 6 Champion Maul, we don't get a swing with a Vine Cleaver on 7, so kind of damage missed, but not really, because they are going to stick the Argent Squire. And that could be a Blessing of Might target, even if the rogue has to hit into it.
This is a game plan that's coming together, Lorinda. If Odemian wants to, he can prep Fan of Knives, coin out Captain Greenskin, and heal for 2 this turn whilst clearing the entire board and putting a 5-4 down. Odemian's game plan is now just remove Paladin's stuff, start gaining the health, get this big weapon, so that eventually he's going to be gaining more health than he's losing. He goes with the Piper instead, but now he's got the weapon guaranteed again after it gets destroyed.
Yeah, Piper finding the shiny finder, which means that the shiny can be found at some point in the future. And because he's got that in hand now, having got the information of what he drew, he can afford to waste this charge on the weapon, whereas if he hadn't hit it, maybe he'd have saved that back.
And this is just better than the play I described as well, because there wasn't actually any need for that extra damage from the weapon this turn. It's the difference between a 3-3 and a 5-4 on the board. He saved the coin this way. It's looking... I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's looking okay for the Kingsbane Rogue.
It is. Looking what Omega Zero did here, by the way, he knew that Fan of Knives was coming last turn, and so he held back the maul that I was talking about, so that this turn he's got a really good reload.
Yeah.
So he hasn't used much resources, and he's managed to still get the damage in. He can get in again next turn, and he's managed to repopulate with 1/1s. Of course, even though they haven't got in hand, they're not going to win this if they don't get Level Up or Fungal Mancer, most likely, although they've got 10 burst in hand.
Right.
And so it serves them good purpose to play as if they're going to draw that card. Plus, I mean, it is adding up. 10 damage next turn and 2 Vine Cleaver swings is just lethal. Of course, it's not because we have the lifesteal.
Yeah, that's a lot of extra life that France is going to be sealing over the next few turns.
Yeah, they feel like, to me, they're like one deadly poison away from really turning the corner here.
The pieces have fallen into place perfectly for France to save. I mean, the key play here was the Fan of Knives, right? Not playing it the turn I suggested, waiting. Playing it, as you said, just before the 5-mana buffs. And that seems to have really shaped this game.
So close to dying all the time, though.
I mean, they're going to have to play it that way, right?
Of course, yeah. They're not going to survive easily. Another problem they're going to have is emptying their hand. Yep. I found that from the Paladin side here that sometimes you can look like you've lost and then you get Divine Favour and you just keep menacing them until you do hit them with a wall of 3/3s. So even when the Kingsbane gets us even 7 damage, sometimes you can wheedle away into doing a chunk of damage back. And yeah, China not wasting time here, just getting that extra damage in while it's available.
I'm really setting up a level up as well. Like, oof.
Blade Flurry.
You know what's really funny, Lorinda?
Me.
At the start, yeah, you are funny. But you know what else is really funny?
No.
At the start of this game, when I was saying, okay, there are little things the Rogue can do, I listed like every single board clear, and I said the Gluttonous Ooze, and I said the Lifesteal, and I said, I'm really stretching here. There's no way Odemian gets all of these cards. Well,
here they all are.
Here they all are, and they may have actually just been enough to win this game. It looks like they have been.
Yeah, still a little way to go. I mean, like I say, there is that Divine Favour reload to come. And for now, France still struggling on 12 health. But that will change around very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, next turn, Omega Zero is most likely to drop the Vine Cleaver, and then Gluttonous Ooze is going to heal Odemian back up, allow him to deal with the entire board, and from that point, he should be okay. Could do with a Deadly Poison, like you said before. That's now, I think, the next vital draw.
Yeah, and if Omega Zero starts swinging with his cleaver next turn, the turn after, Leroy into... sorry, the turn after that, so it's 2 turns away there, but Divine Favour into the second Blessing of Might could be a big issue as well.
Yeah.
Which does 3, not 4, as I earlier suggested.
France down to 14, Vine Cleaver gets played, France down to 10, Gluttonous Ooze puts him back on 14 again.
Yeah.
It's not like Omega Zero has that many options this turn. He also play Divine Favour.
He also doesn't have many turns. If he starts swinging to the face, which is the only thing that really makes sense, he doesn't have many turns to actually win the game.
Yeah.
As Stottle said earlier, when Paladin goes on the defensive, it is just a mucky mess. I don't think he said those words, but that's what he meant.
And the Vanish, the last of the board clears that I said Odemian needed. Obviously, he runs a second copy of the Fan of Knives, and he runs 2 copies of the Vanish, but the 1 Blade Flurry has been drawn, the 1 Gluttonous Ooze has been drawn, the 1 Lifesteal card has been played.
The last of the board clears sounds like another terrible movie name.
Apologies, France do run 2 copies of Leeching Poison, so
okay.
He did have a little bit extra chance of drawing that. But
well, you said they'd worked hard on this deck, and if it's going to beat Paladin, maybe we'll see some more of it.
I kind of want to play it myself now.
Ooh, you're one of those people.
Yeah.
Ooh, don't know if we can work together anymore, Dan. Right, so decision time. How much do we care about this 1/1? Well, getting pretty low on health, so...
I don't hate the idea of snapping it. Which sounds stupid, but it allows him to set up lethal without worrying about it, and it also makes that Divine Favour just 1 mana more difficult to cast.
Okay.
It's probably not necessary, but what else are they sapping? There's not been a Stonehill Defender played, so there's no big taunt or anything in the deck.
He's thinking super hard about it. Does he have lethal if he doesn't sap next turn? No, he's on 16, right?
He
just makes the trade. And that's going to give Omega Zero This Divine Favour I was saying was going to be easy to cast. It's actually going to be difficult. France done a really good job of playing around the comeback condition.
He can't sap it because then it gets replayed with a hero power and then given taunt afterwards. He'd rather sap a 1/1 that's already been buffed and given the taunt. That makes more sense.
But it is going to give China the option of another card, but I don't think the card's going to matter because they've kept their hands so low. Because it's just all taking too long for China. Force Divine Favour for 2. Something people don't do often enough, by the way.
Yeah. Arcane Intellect is still played. But wow, Omega Zero gives up and Odemian gets the win with his Kingsbane Rogue in a matchup that he very specifically did not want.
And the consummate professional there, not like celebrating or going crazy. It's like, right, how do we win game 2? It's the best of 5.
I am just overwhelmed. You know what? I'm going to take my notes. I'm going to put a big line through the tick that I'd made preemptively earlier. And a big
Does that make it a cross?
Yeah, it does. It does. And a big tick next to Kingsbane Rogue, because what do you know?
Yeah. Hunter Ace came second in Toronto. Did you know that?
Hunter Ace, yes, I did.
He lost to Odemian in that event.
Okay.
So we've just seen a bit of the skills there of the French team and Odemian in particular.
I mean, you don't have to convince me of the French team. I have
convinced these people.
I saw Maverick.
You're convinced?
I saw Maverick win DreamHack Tour. I know about the French people.
That's true. Very much so. And they're doing quite well today as well in the other French game. We're on dodgy ground here. Let's move back to the actual French game.
Yulov versus Swid. Next up, it's China on the Even Warlock versus France on the Taunt Warrior. Now, this is also a game, like the first one, that should be favoured for China.
Yeah, we saw that in the last match that Sottle and Raven were casting. This is very difficult in general for Warrior to defend itself. They've talked Odemian down from playing Dead Man's Warrior by the look of it. They're actually playing a proper Hearthstone deck this week.
That's kind of strange. I mean, they did very well with it last week, if I recall correctly.
I can see it now. You're not playing Dead Man's. Okay, I'm playing Kingsbane Rogue then.
And as it happens, I think Sottle alluded to this earlier, China are actually bringing Control Odd Warrior later on, the Fury Hunter. The list that Fury Hunter popularized.
I think the time we saw that the most, even though definitely right to credit it to Fury Hunter, was Dog at the playoffs.
Yep.
I believe was playing that deck and kept getting down to like 1 or 2 health and then suddenly starts pressing the magic button. He's back to 26 or something and the game is over.
That's such a Dog deck, isn't it?
I think it's all right.
Not quite what I meant by that, but anyways, I am looking forward later on to seeing again, this matchup the other way around, but with it being the Odd Warrior rather than Taunt Warrior. I think that's going to be a little bit closer, but probably still Even Warlock favoured. As Warriors just really struggle to keep up with this early pressure of the Even Warlock. Giants on turn 3, Twilight Drakes on turn 4, then big 4-mana 7/7s later on.
Something that we sort of were hoping was going to happen this week, which is they set the table last week. The meta is all laid out nice and neat, and it's all these mid-range thingy decks. And then we were talking earlier about how you can use different condiments to attack that table. Okay, it's getting a bit far now, but with this wide meta that's in the ladder,
is that how you eat? Is that how you eat your meals?
You
get your condiments and you just attack the table.
So with this wide meta, it's all sort of stabilised into a very safe meta last week. But now, because there's still a wide ladder meta, a wide range of decks available, people are using those decks to attack the corners of the meta as is set up. So we set up the meta, and now people are using the extreme decks, the Kingsbane Rogue. We're now seeing this Odd Control Warrior. They're using those to, these are ways we think we can work into the meta and to defeat the meta. So it's good. We were hoping that this would happen, but I think we all felt that maybe it wouldn't. It would just be endless miracles, Maligossers and Shudderwocks.
Endless miracles
for the end of eternity.
In the Hearthstone Global Games 2018. Endless miracles.
That's what we're bringing you, miracles.
I mean, it's really, there's so many positive things to say about the meta at the moment because it's still changing, it's still not always what we expect, and an expansion is coming out in 2 weeks, right? Like, it's such an exciting time to be playing, to be watching, to be casting even Hearthstone.
It gives me 2 weeks to work out how to use my condiments. I'm obviously doing it very, very wrong. All right, into the actual Hearthstone game, and it's China will be putting on the early pressure, and the reason that the Warrior struggles in this game is because it just can't do enough things. It's got to remove stuff, it's got to complete a quest, it's got to keep control of big minions, it's got to kill individual big minions, as well as control potential wide boards. And all the time, the Warlock has the hero power, which just draws them more and more stuff.
Yeah, it's you love on the even Warlock. He did have both Twilight Drakes, decided to throw one away, saying, hey, one is enough by turn 4, and then chances I'm going to draw more threats by then anyway. Maybe he was hoping to swap it for a Mountain Giant, as Twilight Drake is one of the best possible cards you can start with, and Mountain Giant, I guess, is the best possible.
But with no coin, you can't play turn 3 and turn 4, so look for something else to go alongside it that's even better. Makes sense to me.
Isn't it weird how the hero power has affected sort of hand lock like that? Because back in the old days, you'd prefer to not have the coin, because you could play your Mountain Giant first if you didn't have the coin, and now it's the other way around, just because of how the mana works with the hero power. You can fit an extra hero power in.
Yeah, it makes sense. And also you want to fit more in because the 7/7s as well. Just want to hurt yourself so you can hurt them more. Story of my life. And
it's a concerning thought. Have you ever heard of the phrase, like, cutting off your nose to spite your face?
Have you seen my nose? Everyone else has. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more about France for just a moment while I get these early turns.
Please do.
Because basically they are one of the very, very best teams. It's not just this kind of good team category. I've said already, there are 200 tour stop wins between them this year. That's a lot. It's a stupid amount. But we don't necessarily get exposed to them as much because they have their own channel, an Armour team. So watching these shows, you're missing a lot of the good French action a lot of the time. But Sviz is the anchor of this team, and probably, I imagine, the least well-known. He hasn't had that big breakout win, really, that we would expect from him. But acknowledged as possibly the best player on all of the team, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Odimian was saying that to me last week. He said his exact words were, Swids is a top 5 world player by any account.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to argue with Odimian because he's pretty high up himself, and you get to the point where it's hard to judge people that much better than you.
I guess you also don't want to necessarily agree with him, though, because there are a lot of top 5 world players.
And because he's French.
Yeah. I just want to talk about giving credit for a second, because one thing Odimian... You know, I said that they specifically built their Rogue deck and their Even Paladin deck for this week. They did say that some of the French nominees that didn't make the team helped them out with that.
Awesome.
He said that Trek was a big part in helping out with the Even Paladin, and that Yogg was a big help in building the Rogue.
That's interesting, actually, because when I wrote this team down, not this week, but last week, when I hadn't checked the teams properly, I just wrote Yogg down as an auto-include in this team. not the card, but the player himself is yet another player who's racked up a lot of wins this year.
Right.
And to see that he's helping with the team is a big deal. And I think Trek's recently qualified for somewhere as well. A lot of results came in at once, but I think he's also recently qualified for Germany, I believe.
Okay.
Could have been a different one.
I mean, I thought everyone in France had qualified for that event.
Yeah, they all qualified on this. So there's 4 of them qualified on the same day, and there were 4 slots. Pretty sure Trek was in that lineup. So yeah, just incredible. And I've said it once before, and then we'll get back to the game because things are starting to happen. It was harder to get in the French HGG nominations, that's the top 8 plus Svids, than it was to get into the playoffs.
It's just crazy. All right, so Iron Cowl is there, looking like a pretty good way of removing this Twilight Drake. However, the mana doesn't quite line up. He doesn't want to shield slam it for 2 to deal with the 1 damage to the Twilight Drake. That doesn't seem like an efficient use of the card.
Yeah.
I think he'd potentially prefer to play the Blood Reaver, like hit it into the Homunculus, and then next turn silence the Drake and use the Death Rattle to deal with it.
Just looking to see if I can disagree with you, just because that's fun. The Owl plus the... Yeah, sure. You can handle taking 4. Just the Owl damage plus the next turn swing for the Blood Reaver will take care of the 2/4. Okay.
I guess he can, yeah, he can just swing the Blood Reaver next turn, of course. I hadn't thought about that. He's saying, look, you either trade the Twilight Drake into the Owl now, and it doesn't matter, and it's still done its job, or next turn I will deal with it for free from the Blood Reaver. And as you said, you take extra damage, but it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, damage, I mean, health is a resource, is a thing we all know. In this matchup, Not so much because your opponent's trying to get you to 0 health as quickly as possible, but it's still a resource you can use to save your cards. And if you're going to get the quest done, if you're going to get something out of that, then having cards seems quite an important thing to do. The question is, how much damage can you use a resource? That's where it becomes difficult. Most players out there know you can use your health as a resource.
Right.
One of my weaknesses personally is like hitting into medium-sized minions to try and keep them in control, like hench gang thugs. Oh, just hit that in my face. Then 3 turns later, that hurt a lot.
Yeah, and it's even more difficult in a matchup like this one. I mean, especially for a deck like this one, because at some point, as part of your win condition, you give up your ability to gain armor. That is just a fact. And so how much chip damage you take in the meantime can end up being a problem. If great, you've got your win set up for 3 turns, but your health is too low and a Hellfire just finishes the job.
Yeah, and you just have so little armor gain in the decks, if any, that, yeah, it's just over if you do that. That being said, you do need to race there as quickly as possible. And it's just this balancing act. I get the feeling this didn't go as planned for some reason. I don't know why.
For France?
Mm.
Well, the Shroom Brewer healing up the minion is an issue, because now the Blood Reaver doesn't just deal with the Homunculus and the 4-1. It's not as clean as it was before. A Switch can play the Cornered Sentry and coin out the Blood Reaver, but then he's not getting the Dry Whisker Armorer.
I think he'll play the Armorer now.
Okay.
And then just take what he takes, because he gets 6 out of the Sentry. Shield slamming away the Brewer to get rid of any... There's no nice trade that goes into this Corner Sentry now.
It would have been so ironic if that Shield Slam went into the Twilight Drake.
Yeah, that would have...
After all of that. But no, the Shroom Brewer are obviously just a better target. And like you said, it's now awkward for China to deal with this Cornered Sentry. Twilight Drake and Homunculus isn't horrible, I guess, but it's not great either.
However, what is great, although not yet, because the Execute in hand is the Giant. So I wonder how patient or otherwise China will be with his Giant, knowing that there's almost certainly a Whirlwind effect coming, you would think, although the last play did look a little bit unusual, if you're sat on their side of the table. How they will just go with the Giant. I think they've got enough stuff in hand to just plonk it out there and start going for it. But then you've got to play around Brawl as well. If you've got to play around Brawl, you've got to work out how many of these Raptors you want to kill off. So there's a combination now of what do we do with our hand, but also what do we do with this board. Let's see what conclusion they reached.
Got to keep the Homunculus as healthy as possible.
I like this because Gen's kind of an awkward card to get any really good lasting value out of. His value declines a lot as the game goes on, and it's a Brawl tempter, it's an Execute tempter.
The thing is, and it's an okay stat line, isn't it? It's not.
Right.
It's obviously not the quality of a 4-mana 8/8
Yep.
or a 4-mana 7/7 or a 4-mana 4/10. So any of the 4-mana cards, but it's good enough. It's one of the perfect cards to just sort of put next to an already sort of established board, because it's just about good enough to eat up a board clear, but not so good that you care if it gets killed by a board clear.
Yeah, and the fact that it becomes increasingly useless later on adds to your point there that it's just getting some value out right now, as well as being a menace. Of course, a 6-mana 6/5 on turn 10 when you've got 4 mana to go alongside it isn't doing much a lot of the time.
Forgetting its effect for a second, Gen is a significantly better card than Baku, just because it doesn't cost 9. Just the fact that you can squeeze it into these turns.
Sure. Yeah, my first instinct when I very first saw them, when you had the decks going to come out, was that Baku might work out better just because it's a lumpy thing you can play at the end. But it just works out as garbage, and all the decks it goes in tend to be aggressive, and aggressive decks tend not to want a 9-mana bad card.
Well, and the other issue is your hero power costs 2, so you can't actually play it with the hero power that you've buffed by putting it in the deck.
Yeah.
Whereas Gen, you can. It costs 6. Great. That's, as long as you've got 7 mana, you can do both.
Yeah, Baku definitely got the rough end of the deal, which suits me, because Gen looks better.
He does look better. I
think we actually agree on something.
I missed them on our windows.
I like the windows. The Fox looks better than all of them. Oh,
yeah. You do play with sounds on. What do you know?
I watch a lot with sounds on. I do occasionally play with sounds on. If I'm not watching a stream, I play with sounds on.
Mana Mountain Giants are pretty good cards. Just gonna put that
I'm
out
going
there.
to try really hard to argue with that. 3 mana 8/8, given that we just had a whole year, 2 years of 4 mana 7/7s. Yeah, okay. 3 mana 8/8's good.
You're not going to argue with it?
No, I'll find something else to argue about later, Dan.
The thing is about
I'll
this.
pick my spots.
The thing is about this play as well from China is that this is saying, hey, if you got Brawl, play it.
Yeah, and they've been doing that for 3 or 4 turns in a row. 3 is a good number of minions for that. I think that's established over many years.
Because if there is a successful Brawl, it's like, okay, fine, we'll follow up with the 2 4-mana 4/4s, and that's still okay. As it happens, there is no Brawl, and Yulove and Team China are starting to get that idea. And so they're just going to stop playing around it in a minute and be like, well, we can probably just beat you before you draw it.
Decent looking clear coming up here. It won't be a full clear, but leaving your opponent with just a 4/2 seems reasonable to me, especially when you've got a bunch of 2/4s coming shortly. Showing the importance of getting every last piece of damage, though. Every clear they've done has basically been exact.
Right.
One misstep on 1 point of damage anywhere along the line, and they would be in real trouble.
2-1. Belgium versus Croatia.
Yeah. I'm torn on that. I'd love to see Belgium and Croatia both do well. I think Croatia last week deserved the win. You know, partly on skill, but partly on team spirit and just the fight they put up as well. Losing to that last second healing rain was absolutely devastating.
I'm really sorry, Maverick, for my comments earlier.
He'd forgotten them, but now you've alerted him again.
About his nationality.
Don't apologise, just let them miss it. Nobody in chat will tell Maverick.
They don't pay any attention, do they?
Your magic shall not
Especially now. Right, continuing with the theme of 3 minions, quite a lot of attack, challenge you to do something. Seems to be a theme that's working well. You can't go too far, otherwise you just get warpathed now as well at this point.
I think these turns are a great illustration of why the Warlock is such a successful deck in this matchup. They're not even really doing much. They've played a couple of 4-mana cards, 2-mana card, they're tapping a few times, and they're just hitting the face with little chunks of damage. But the point is, they have many, many, many more ways of putting these chunks of damage onto the board than France does with the Taunt Warrior.
Especially if you're keeping it to 3. So you're keeping 3 minions on the board. Let's say they get brawled. And worst case scenario, you lose 2.
Right.
You tap, you draw, you've got 2 cards back. Your opponent can only get 1 card back. That's your worst case scenario, is they gain 1 card on you. And you're doing this turn after turn after turn where you just keep drawing the cards back.
Yeah.
And all of them are, even the 4/3 is just annoying and big enough to threaten lethals. And when you're threatening that, you're stopping your opponent from playing a lot of their taunts a lot of the time, because they're busy killing your stuff. And the taunts aren't big enough to act as more than speed bumps for the most part. There's the illustration, 2 out of 7 pieces of quest done. And that's because they've been busy playing weapons and executes and all that stuff, and they haven't been able to get on with their game plan. Meanwhile, China's game plan is just keep making some minions and hit you. It sounds easy when you word it like that.
Well, now we are in 15 health range, or beneath 15 health rather. So Hooked Reaver is a 4-mana 7/7. If Yulove strongly feels as though there's no board clear into its hand, he might just decide to play this. It's a bit of a stretch, but if the read is there, which it looks like it is.
So many possibilities.
Yeah, it's a 4-mana 7/7. They've got through giants and all sorts of other stuff. 12 cards left. There's another giant still to come anyway, and another Twilight Drake. So keep that pressure coming, and even if it gets removed, you'll have more pressure again next turn. Meanwhile, you're just hitting them in the face.
It's the beauty of the Warlock hero power. Like, they don't care too much if their board does get cleared.
Making sure that the Acolyte can't injure the 7/7 to play around the second execute. Just with that little trade there, if you're wondering why they didn't go all face.
Sure. It is now not a lethal setup.
It's not, that's important as well.
Whereas, like, right now it's exactly lethal with the Hellfire. But the thing is, they have to assume that France will at least armor up.
Yeah, and also if they can't kill anything now, then they're probably going to win.
So my counter argument would be that there was the potential of the 2-turn lethal there if that 2 damage did go face.
Yep.
Suddenly it's there with the armor up. Realistically, it's not going to matter. They will be expecting there to be a taunt in the way somewhere. So probably not a consideration, but I figured it was worth pointing out.
It's always worth counting these lethals, because sometimes you spot one that suddenly they haven't got a defense and we kill them, or they're playing to draw their one out to save the game. It used to matter a lot against, say, Q block, where they're about to draw their Gul'dan, you've got to kill them.
Second Hellfire would be incredible here, if not for the fact that almost all of China's minions have 3 or less health. So it's not like they can go Hellfire, Hellfire, win the game, because all they would have left to attack with is the 7/7. So that's 13 damage, total potential damage this turn. Which isn't bad, putting the warrior on 7, but they're going to want to try and keep their minions alive if possible. They've also now got Gul'dan they can play next turn. I don't know how the warrior keeps up with this.
I mean, we can see how it's keeping up with it. They have 4 cards, and Yulev has 9 or 10.
So not keeping up well at all then, really.
Not really, not doing a great job of it. And the important part is they haven't even got their quest anywhere near finished yet. Well, that sped up a lot last turn, so it is fairly near, I guess.
Wow, okay. Nice defile setup there, allowing that trade, and now the Retriever can go face nicely for 7.
Looking like they're going to make sure it stays on maximum health. Once again, just making sure that execute can't do anything naughty. And setting up a lethal if you do anything.
Yeah, this is now a lethal setup, well and truly. With 2 Hellfires in hand, that's 6 damage from the hand and 7 from the Hooked Reaver. So if it's just taunts coming out, that's no good. So it has to armor up and play a taunt.
Yeah, nicely calculated from China there to get it to exactly 13. Can complete the quest. It's something you really need to do.
But this is the issue, right? Like, if France go 3 Phantom Militia, that's it, they just lose.
They could go Stonehill into, like, 1 drop into trying to hit your 7/7.
Okay.
Because Stonehill and Phantom Militia play around Hellfire the same way anyway.
Yeah, the problem is the fact that there's 2 Hellfires, though.
Right.
That's what I mean. Like, if all Swids does is play taunts, if none of them have more than 6 health, they are just dead.
But if he goes for a 1 drop here, he can get the...
get the
quest and the self-yours and hit something at the same time. And that's what they're going for. I'm pretty sure they've worked out that double Hellfire is pretty likely with only 10 cards left.
Yeah.
It's about 50-50, I seem to remember.
That's certainly what they're going for. But they need to get the Hooked Reaver here.
But even if they miss this, just look at how France have played this turn. There were better looking turns. And they've identified that there is a big problem and they've tried to play around the big problem. This is why they win a lot of matches, because sometimes this matters. 1 time in 3 even, it could matter.
This is just lethal though. Double Hellfire will clear up all of Swid's minions. The 7 damage to the face makes the 13. And we said that this was a favoured matchup for the Warlock. It has gone exactly as we anticipated, with them pushing in all these little chunks of damage bit by bit, but Yulev takes it away. And now the score is 1-1.
1 apiece, and I think France will be happy with that situation, given the matchups that they were presented with.
Should be 0-2 right now, according to my notes for France. So.
Change the notes, they're wrong. Oh, you did. I remember you put a cross through.
I'm sorry for expecting Odd Paladin to beat Kingsbane Rogue, all right? I'm sorry.
How dare you? How does little chunks work, by the way? Is that like cat food or something?
Sure, yeah.
Little cat food of damage?
Little chunks, you know?
Yeah.
Just chunks, but little ones.
Makes sense.
You know, the little chunks?
Because I think of chunks as sort of, chunky.
Well, while we work out exactly what little chunks are, we're going to go to a short break. China versus France continues in just a few moments. Leo versus Windello next in a Mage Mirror, but not a Mage Mirror, just a Mage Mirror.
So that's many mages and many mirrors, meaning that I think that the mages are different mages.
Magic mirror on the wall. Which is the mage to beat them all?
Don't know, we're going to find out in just a moment.
It's going to be Aggro Mage versus Big Spell Mage coming up now. To me, this is a pretty clear cut and dry matchup in that the Big Spell Mage just cannot keep up with Mana Worm.
Yeah, it's really difficult for them to keep it with Mana Worm, so the first part of that is drawing it, which happens in most Aggro Mage wonderlands.
Yeah, but even without the Mana Worm, there's so much damage that can go in. The Big Spell Mage doesn't have that many ways of gaining health until Jaina. Yeah, there's the 2 Artificers, but they have to be paired with an expensive spell. It's difficult to keep the health high enough, and there we go. Amani Berserker, Arcanologist, and a Luneth in hand, ready to go. Do you know what? I saw the Bright-Eyed Scout there and thought for a second, hang on a sec, this is Big Druid. No, it's just a tech that we do see sometimes in Big Spell Mage, and it's something I'm not surprised about from China.
Have you ever seen... Well, that sounds really grim. Have you ever seen Bright-Eyed Scout really make a massive impact?
In this deck?
Like, yeah.
In Big Druid, yes. Yes, I have. In this deck, no.
Yeah, I tend to feel that it's just not that great. But it is a 4-drop, which means you get to do something before going on your mission to blow everything up turn after turn after turn.
There's not that many big minions in this deck as well. Looking at Leo's deck list, there's not like more than you'd expect. Yes, there's the Lich King, Alana, Sindragosa, Baron Geddon, Frostlit Jaina, but that's about it. Oh, okay. Well, can we get the next game, please?
So, Mana Worm on turn 1 seems good.
3-1 now. Belgium have beaten Croatia. Now, real talk, Maverick going to be a lot happier about that one. He is, of course, jokes aside, a member of Team Belgium.
Yeah, it's something that we started many years ago in Maverick, but particularly after DreamHack Tour when he won there, sort of asking how it was nice to win in his home country.
Apparently I wasn't completely clear. I was being sarcastic earlier.
So I apologise to Belgium and all your peoples.
I wonder.
And now the situation here for Windello is not to panic too much. The Mana Worm, as much as we go on about it, is nowhere near the integral part of this deck as it used to be, in my opinion. It's really good against aggro, in particular. You just can't beat Paladin without it, for instance. But in terms of beating somebody really hard and really quickly, actually, if you overdo it on the Mana Worm, despite the fact it's tempting to get it in there before the mage really has a recovery, you use up too much stuff if you're not careful. You've got to balance it nicely.
The thing is with the Mana Worm, it's just too much power too quickly, isn't it? Sure, there is an element of wanting to balance it, but there's also an element of, you just can't deal with this, I'm going to give it 9 attack and smack you in the face.
Yep. Can't disagree. With this build and with the modern builds, there are slightly more minions, or a similar number of minions at least to maybe the last 12 months.
Okay.
But the older build had even fewer.
Right.
And so you do need to get that minion damage in. Now, sometimes you do it by just Frostbolt a thing, my Mana Worm gets bigger, hit you. Or Coin Counterspell, my Mana Worm gets bigger, hit you even more. But the reason France aren't going crazy on it is because they have a perfectly decent curve. They have a Luneth.
Yeah, they do, they're fine.
And they just want to chip away with this damage. They've got until turn 5, as I keep on about.
This is the only consistent way of even dealing with it, though. I was going to mention like the Voodoo Doll and then pinging it. Even sooner if Lee plays the Voodoo Doll and then just trades it in or something next turn. But it's going to deal some damage right now.
And that's how they see it. They see it as a bigger threat than a 2-3, even at this point, even with ping available.
Yes, it's Mana Worm is a pretty big threat, Lorinda. It's a pretty powerful card.
And something else this does as well is it makes it really difficult to play a functioning Cinderstorm. Lots of choices available here. When the counterspell comes down, is going to be a big deal. They'll want to get it going into that turn 5.
Yeah. There were a lot of ways Windello could go with that. I was like tunneling on the coin 4-drop to get a random secret out, but the problem with that is that France are really going to want to coin out the Luneth.
Yeah.
So going with the...
Actually, I say, yeah, I mean, I agree that my instinct is they want to coin out a Luneth. They may actually have so much stuff in their hand that it might be one of those very rare occasions. I don't suggest trying this at home, where instead of coining a Luneth, you spam the board with everything else one turn first, if you think they're going to stick. But against Mage, yeah, just get the Luneth going.
5 mana
quickly
Meteor.
as possible.
5 mana Meteor, that's a pretty good result for Red Eyed Scout. There's a lot of cards that cost less than 5 mana naturally in this deck, so it's not one that Team China are going to be complaining about too much. You mentioned the Cinderstorm a moment ago. Well, now Cinderstorm is looking better as long as this board stays clear, which it should do for the most part. That Stonehill Defender could be a bit of a nuisance. However, Windello, I think, is going to find it really hard to just not drop the 4-drop and curve here.
Yeah, the 2/2/2s is so irritating for the Mage to deal with because, well, it's not they drop a Stonehill Defender as we can see, but it's 4 damage a turn, which is significant because you're backing up your spells. You're not trying to kill them with this, you're just trying to tick it up nicely.
Yep.
But do you really want to AoE 2/2/2s? No, you don't. It's no fun.
I'm just enjoying hearing you saying 2/2/2s over and over.
2/2/2s
2/2/2s.
as well. Mirror Entity, super tempting here. The other 2 cards don't really do much in terms of building up your speed of winning the game.
The problem with Mirror Entity is Doomsayer.
Sure.
Like, playing down Mirror Entity means that if China plays Doomsayer, it's guaranteed to go off, but you're right, none of these cards really do anything, and I think given those options, like you said, the others just don't do anything.
You've got bits in your hand that can help. I mean, you don't want to fireball anything, obviously. I think you let it go off and coin a Luneth if you've got Doomsayer, but... Another interesting side effect of playing, when you do play Mirror Entity against slower decks, is it takes them a while to test for it. They test for Counterspell, they test for all sorts of things, and sometimes they don't have a minion to test for it for some time. So they're playing around stuff they don't even know what it is sometimes. Although China just got on with it and said, okay, if you've got Counterspell, sure. This to me is the crunch turn in the whole game. Do you want to develop the board, or do you think your hand's just got so much damage that you don't need to play a Luneth? Obviously a Luneth is always the tempting thing, but also...
as you said though, the hand's too full.
Yeah. And one thing that helps them empty that hand is the coin. So by not coining a Luneth, they get to keep that as well, especially if they get a Sorcerer's Apprentice off the Luneth, then the turn after they can go incredibly nuts with Sorcerer's Apprentices and coins and all the spells that they pick up.
I think that's key. You alluded to this earlier, and I wasn't sure at the time, but I think so now. It's just better to hold off on the Luneth, hopefully draw a Sorcerer's Apprentice or something, and then know it's a little bit safer to get going.
Runs out on me.
Now, how did France end this turn? Counterspell will be tempting, because as you said, we've gone into board clear territory, but Cinderstorm is a guaranteed 3 mana, 5 damage to the face. It's hard to pass that up. Not many more opportunities like this are going to appear.
Yeah, one reason for the long think there is it's only 4 damage, because you can just ping pass. And it's resources you've lost. You've lost a point of damage somewhere in the game, but you've got a Luneth, you've got a handful of stuff you can't empty anyway. Start emptying that stuff out your hand, because you've also got to get it done before turn 9 for some reason. Jaina.
Jaina.
That's exactly the reason. And another reason this matchup is bad for the Control Mage is something that Mage does badly is killing one thing. I know it has Voodoo Doll, I know it has Polymorph, but all the rest of the removal revolves around taunts. Sorry, taunts? Revolves around one-on-one, revolves around AoE. If you can force them to use an AoE spell, which is expensive because it kills a lot of things, and it's only killing one thing, then you can almost try and call this a Tempo Mage rather than a Burn Mage. But I'm still not going to let you. I know you wouldn't.
I much prefer the turn aggro mage for this deck, and wow, Kirintor Mage isn't a bad draw at all. Look how clean this turn is. Cinderstorm to squeeze that other 5 damage in now, play a minion, put up a counterspell to protect this minion.
Is it pretty close to over? So you Kirintor counterspell, you Cinderstorm for 5, that puts them to 11. Your Kirintor is connecting, let's say, nearly all of the time because the counterspell there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the
7.
Stonehill Defender and thinking maybe it does to connect to the face.
You get 1 out of it, right? Because you've got the Mirror Entity.
We have secrets.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, actually.
You could play Explosive Runes if you're that scared, but I think the Cinderstorm's right. You don't get another chance at it. Okay, so it doesn't connect all the time, but that's if your opponent decides to play Stonehill 1/4 into your 4/3, which they might because they can follow it up with Lich King.
And 2 secrets, which are likely to be Explosive Rune plus Counterspell.
And also, how do you heal here? You can't get to Jaina, you've got the Artificer, which you then can't get the spell gets countered.
I mean, we're just describing different reasons in why this matchup sucks for the big spell mage, aren't we?
Pretty much. And when you're not playing your Luneth and you're still in danger of winning, that's when the matchup looks pretty good.
In danger of winning.
Sorry, that refers to my
danger, danger! You're about to win the game. Watch out!
That refers to my own play more than the French team, I think.
Lorinda, you might be doing something right.
Yeah, exactly.
Careful.
Quick, start copying Crane again.
Okay, Missiles, unlike the Cinderstorm, not going to get that perfect opportunity to hit the face 3 times, but now we're in that territory where the Luneth is looking great. Start to just draw the rest of the burn from the deck and win the game almost immediately. He just needs another copy of Fireball, you know, a Frostbolt, maybe a second Arcane Missiles for very, very high chances to win this game.
Wonder if he tempted some missiles first, just to see what happens. There's some outcomes that look quite interesting. Like the outcomes where it hits the same minion 3 times, maybe. Both of those are kind of interesting. And then he still can play a Luneth. And it feels like you almost always have a mana left over this turn, whatever you wanted to do. Worst case, you end up using your coin. So maybe he'll missiles, because he might want explosive wounds in case of Lich King or Geddon as well. I like this missiles more and more, talking myself into this.
Time runs out on me.
He likes it too, but he likes the idea of just face damage while he's at it. Because if the missiles hit exactly once onto the stone hill, you just wasted a missile, would be one of those reasons.
2 in face though, that's so good. Now it's just a frostbolt for lethal next turn.
And here's all that stuff.
That'll do. That'll do it. And Lee has no way of healing this turn. So as we can see from that hand, 8 mana available. Fireball plus Life Trinket is 9 damage. Windallo, unsurprisingly, is going to take this game.
And as I said in the last week, he should just be called Dello. But his friends call him Winder. And I'm going to be saying that every single week from now on, I'm afraid.
The score is now 2-1 for France. And now, again, in my original notes, I'd sort of, planned out who I thought would win each matchup, and I had it that we were going to end up going all the way to game number 5. However, then France won with the Kingsbane Rogue against the Odd Paladin. So this next game is vital because it's going to be the Even Warlock versus the Odd Warrior, as you can see there. And this is not an easy matchup for China.
It's not, and then if it comes down to the game number 5 as well, there's still that Hunter versus Druid to come.
Well, that should
into
be
the future.
That should be in China's favour because it ends up being the
because it's token
Druid.
Sorry,
versus
yes.
Death Rattle Hunter.
So this is the vital game there. Looking at the screen there, I'm just used to going, yeah, that's the win for the Hunter, but a few more token Druids about this week.
Right. Well, so I kind of want to go back a little bit and suggest that potentially that first game was the vital game, because again, in theory, or at least what I had written down, we were likely to go all the way to game 5, in which China won game 5.
Okay.
However, because of the incredibly unfavoured win there, things have changed dramatically. We're not going to get to game 5 potentially, as game 4 is now just might be the third win.
Might well be the key game because the Hunter has no way of moving all that token stuff, as we saw earlier in the day.
Right. They have a Rexar.
Can just suffer. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. But they can get it.
But this current game is going to be a pretty difficult one to judge, actually. We don't see much Odd Warrior at all. And again, like we had this discussion earlier. You said Dog played it at playoffs. I mentioned that this is Fury Hunter's bread and butter. This is the list that he created. There is, I believe, there is Azalina in this list, which Fury Hunter has always, whenever I spoke to him about Azalina, he said, oh, no, that wasn't me. I made the list. Someone else added Azalina.
Yeah, Azalina for me is no fun. It was originally there as an attempt to stop Rin, I believe, and then people realised
doesn't really make all that much sense, does it?
Not only did it not make much sense as a way to stop Rin, if that was its purpose, why is it still here?
In the future, in future Hearthstone, certain patches are going to happen, which makes Azalina a lot stronger against Shadowwalk.
Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah.
With the,
you might want to explain that.
Okay, so in a patch that's coming out with the expansion, I believe, Azalina, when she steals cards, she's now going to keep any buffs that the cards have.
Okay.
That includes discounted mana, which means if your opponent has played a Shadowwalk combo and has several Shadowwalks.
Oh, nice.
You take their hand, you can then play Azalina, play the 3/1 mana Shadowwalks. You end up gaining something like 60 armor from each one because you've played the Dry Whisker Armorer. You get that to go off twice. You've got Cornered Sentry going off several times, so your opponent gets a big wide board. And then you can gain something like 100 armor return or something.
Whose claws are catching now,
and the Shadowwalk just never kills you because every time you replay Shadowwalk, you add more Shadowwalks to your hand because Azalina goes off and it goes on and on and on. So in the future, we're going to see Azalina put in decks just to counter Shadowwalk. But for now...
I hope they don't start putting Azalina in their Shadowwalk back to counter the other Azalina. Because then everybody gets 100 armor. Or they have to get the armor first.
They don't get the Dry Whisker.
Yeah, they've got to get the Dry Whisker from their Zola,
I mean,
which they got from MC Tech.
You're right.
And then they get an Azalina from something else.
They've got a really big headache, Lorinda.
Toast, get on it. Break the game again.
In the meantime, while we leave Disguise Toast to work that one out, we're going to jump into game number 4. It's Control Warrior versus Even Warlock. Let's do it.
Kallax also recently qualified for Germany, absolutely in that ridiculous day for France. And ridiculous day for him this time last week, though, when he was on the Shadowwalk. When he put on his shades a little bit too soon.
Just a little bit. We showed that again in the community show yesterday. He thought he'd won a game, but the Shadowwalk only froze one of the 3 minions, meaning that his opponent still had lethal thanks to the double Mind Blast and Holy Fire in his hand. You can totally understand him thinking that he'd won that game. The game was over, it just wasn't him.
None will.
I wonder if he'll have anything lined up if he wins this time around, or if he'll be a bit more careful with his dramaticisms. No, why does nobody draw their big things in their even locks?
He's still got, 2 more life taps and 2 more natural draws.
Just having a look at this Bone Mare. France last week, I think, played Bone Mare and Lich King.
Yeah, they are.
Here it is again.
Which is good in matchups like this, in matchups like against the big Spell Mage, because the more threats you've got, the better. The reason I believe the Warlock to be slightly favoured, not dramatically favoured, but slightly favoured, is because it just has more threats than China can actually remove. Gorehao can do some work and remove several threats, sure, but we've got, Mountain Giants, we've got Twilight Drakes, we've got, as I glance at the list, we've got the Lich King, we've got Bone Mare, we've got the Black Knight has to be dealt with, Gen has to be dealt with, Dread Inferno has to be dealt with, even Hooked Reavers have to be dealt with, right? And Control Warrior still only runs 2 copies of Shield Slam and 2 copies of Execute.
Interesting to me, they're playing double Gorehao.
Sorry, no Execute, it's an odd deck.
So double Gorehao could be a thing. Obviously, you get all that spare armor lying around from this hero power. And so, you can afford to hit into a lot of minions later on. If you can deal with the giants and hang on, that's the option then to try and kill off everything else with your Gorehao.
That's an interesting thought of how maybe this matchup turns around a little bit. And also, there's no weapon removal from the Control Warlock, so Trunks can do whatever he wants with these Gorehounds. He can just leave them on the board.
Seems good. They're trying to work out now how much armor they need to gain for this game. Do you want to play a Stonehill and develop board, or do you want to just get 4 armor? Because that's half a hit from a Mountain Giant, just like that, out of the way. Do that twice, you've gained a turn.
So part of me is thinking they want to armor up as much as they possibly can, but the other part is thinking the quicker they can actually get stuff on the board, like taunts are good at preventing damage as well as armor.
I think they were having the same discussion. Do you remember when this was like a taunt warrior list? Like odd taunt warrior, so you'd have this hero power you never used at the handicap of having even cards in your deck, no even cards in your deck, and then you'd get rid of it when you completed the quest anyway.
What were you just saying about these Warlock decks never drawing Mountain Giants for turn 3?
Yeah, just in the nick of time. That's why France are good. Do they want to do anything with it though? Probably just plonk it on the board and move on with their life, I should think.
It's really hard to argue against that play. Okay, the argument against that play is there's a 1/4 protecting it and it's not going to contact with the face next turn.
And when do you play your Doomsayer in this game? There's another question they'll be asking themselves. Like maybe they could play the Doomsayer now.
And then curve into Mountain Giant.
Yeah, just to free up the board for Mountain Giant to have a clean run. Just because the Doomsayer is going to be kind of useless. If you're going to make that sort of play and it's close, it's like, well, let's just get this card that's going to clutter our hand up for the rest of the game. Let's just move it now.
We're definitely having a good discussion about it, as we can see. Kallax is listening intently to his teammate, giving his own opinions and everything. It's great to see that there has been a lot of discussion, communication and teamwork amongst the French team as they eventually decide to go for Mountain Giant.
Again, I may be completely wrong in my read, but I feel that Kallax there just wanted somebody to make the call because he wasn't sure. I think I got the impression they were still discussing it, and maybe he gave a name as the person who should give the call, or maybe he said, I'm doing it, anyone going to really cry? There was a lot of discussion right to the last second.
So one of the tricky things about this matchup for Trunks is going to be balancing how much removal he uses against Kallax's things. So like, for example, this turn, tank up Shield Slam is an option, but are there other minions that need to be Shield Slammed later?
Counterpoint to that, though, you've got Reckless Flurry in your deck. So you don't really want to build up too much armor and have it wasted anyway, so you might as well use them while you've got them, basically.
I definitely agree with the play. I mean, I also think that the other minions, other than Twilight Drake, have 7 or less health. And therefore Gorehao is going to be able to do some serious work. So for Trunks, it's about keeping his health and armor as high as possible for now, and letting it go a little bit later on when he has to use them to remove the board with Reckless Flurry, as you said.
Multiple reasons this game is going to take quite a while, so you've probably got time to, get comfortable.
Let's sit back and relax a little.
Because not only is it quite a grindy match anyway, but I suspect the players haven't played it that much in their preparation. Deck list came out last night, so they've probably practiced it a bit, but you don't know what's going to run into what, so...
Yeah, how many times exactly can they practice this match between last night and this morning? Like
one,
twice?
or talk about it a few times when you see the matchup come out.
Yeah.
Luckily, you've got 4 of the best players in the world on your team, so very quick, very high-level discussion will happen very, very fast. And as you see, they're roping now whilst they get the rest of that high-level discussion in. And talking about how you're going to get that Doomsayer activated, as Kalak seems to be stretching himself into position for the long game as well.
In theory, this is a matchup that Team France wanted, though. I mean, again, harkening back to my discussion with Odemian, he said that he believes that their ban strategy is primarily going to be any aggro deck and Shadow Walk. That's top priority to ban.
Right.
I mean, and the Paladin was left up, and this
yeah,
wasn't
I'm having
either.
a quick flick through, actually, to see why the Paladin got left up. Just have a look what actually got banned. So the Priest got banned, which was Mind Blast. The Shaman, which you said was Shadow Walk, the Rogue, and the Hunter.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
And in order, that was Shadow Walk first,
Yep.
Miracle Rogue, that's an aggro deck, Death Rattle Hunter, that's an aggro deck, and then the Priest, which is kind of the odd one of the bunch.
But it may not have lined up very well against all
Yeah.
these other decks. It's probably trumps the other sort of controlling things they've got lying around.
And in fact, I think that the Paladin was picked before that Mind Blast Priest ban anyway. So if they wanted to have that as the
of course, you get to sneak one in, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you can't just ban 4 things in one go. So
it's not as straightforward as you can ban any 4 decks you want. It's like you ban a deck, and then your opponent chooses decks that you
they
cannot
actually
ban.
first picked it looking now. Because they knew what was
Paladin?
coming. Yeah, the Paladin was
Oh.
first pick. That's how he got through the net. Of course it is.
Right.
Makes sense now. You can't ban everything.
Almost out of time.
Dread Inferno was found to try to get something to stick to the board. But China's health just getting higher and higher, and I would imagine that Chonks just leaves this to be cleared up by Gorehound next turn.
Yeah, seems that way to me. The Gorehounds, as I was saying earlier, really can afford to be used turn after turn just because of the hero power. But obviously the Warlock's damage output is pretty high going forward, so I don't see any danger for China yet, though. It will get to the point where the Warlock has to put more than 4 attack on the board every single turn just to do any damage at all through the armor. And they will start to run out of stuff, but we're nowhere near that point just yet.
No, Trunks is just going to be controlling the board in such an efficient way. This is the only turn that feels really bad, actually.
Yeah, it feels bad because he wants to work in that hero power. If you, otherwise you just drop Elise and move on with your life.
Maybe it's just drop Gluttonous Ooze turn, because there's no way for the Warlock to take advantage of weapons, so if you'd like to just put something on the board and work in the hero power, but no, he decides that getting Elise ready to go is actually just better.
So they're just saying that the difference between a 5/5 plus the Elise card and a 3/3 is worth more than 4 armor.
Right.
That's what they decided. And when you word it like that, it feels correct.
Yeah.
It feels like you did need to do something to challenge this 6/6 in some shape or form. I realise that the 3/2 does challenge it, but if they get healed up, then you just don't help yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
How much do you want to commit? It's still only turn 6. It feels like this is about turn 14 already. What's he seen?
Shields up.
Spellstone to get
Yeah.
the Elise, I guess.
And got enough good stuff in hand, so not deciding not to tap for a while. They're not going to win in fatigue, but they could lose because of fatigue. So not getting too close to it if you don't need to just makes some sense.
It's going to be a difficult balance. When Kalax draws Gul'dan, I wonder if he's going to want to just play it down as quickly as possible or wait. The other advantage to playing this here is that maybe it survives for long enough for the Bone Mare to give it a buff and deal some damage.
Yep. And they've done a decent job here of killing off a minion or 2 already. Like you say, when they get the Ghoul Man himself, they're going to want to put it on the board. pretty rapidly, the more it can bring back, the more they're going to want to put it down. It's all going to get brawled away anyway, so they won't be too greedy with it.
So we were saying earlier that we think that this matchup is ever so slightly favoured for the Warlock, but something Odemian said to me earlier, because I asked him specifically about this matchup.
Right.
He said he thinks it's closer to 50-50.
So it's one of those where actually nobody knows. They're just all covering the fence and sitting on the sheets.
And he was comparing it to the Taunt Warrior versus Even Warlock. Where he was saying that, whereas that's definitely Warlock, this is closer to 50-50. They were his exact words.
Yeah, you're constantly under a weird sort of pressure as the Warlock, where you are the one who's being pressured into putting stuff on the board.
Right.
It's an unusual form. Obviously, pressure normally comes in the form of damage taken, but if you're being pressured to make a play every turn, then that is kind of awkward.
Chunk's just going to swing in that Gore Howl every turn.
He is. He's starting to run out of good minions as backup, though. You can't just keep tanking the damage every single turn. Eventually the Gore Howl does run out, although it takes a long time. And also his health total will start to fall slowly but surely.
Yeah, that's the only real issue, isn't it? But here, like, he's taking 6, but then healing for 4 again.
And he will probably make sure he does that, but he's just starting to have no backup. And if that happens, if Kallax can force the brawl out of his hand and then get Gul'dan down maybe a turn after, so hope there aren't 2 brawls, that could be a way that France could generate a very difficult to kill attack.
We're about to be reminded why Bone Mare is such a good card, Lorenzo. How? There's just no clean way of dealing with a Bone Mare turn with a deck like this. Like, dealing with 1 minion is often fine. Dealing with multiple minions is fine because you've got a brawl, but how do you deal with exactly 2? 2 good mid-range minions. This is how you do it. You preemptively put other stuff on the board.
So now, do you feel you're going to get many better Bone Mares than this? Are you in a hurry to get your Lich King cards? I feel like you want to stick the Lich King later as a lot of extra resources. Maybe somehow get 2 cards off it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. He wants to get as many cards as possible. It's not realistic that he'll get more than 1, but he wants to try and set that up. 1 Shield Slam has already been used. Obviously, there's no Executes in this deck because it's an odd deck. There's still Reckless Flurry, though. There's still the Gore Howl plus the weapons on the board. It might be possible for him to set up to get 2. I'm surprised we didn't see Bone Mare this turn, honestly. I think the dropping of the Glutinous Ooze there is what prevented that from coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't look that great because of the Gluttonous Ooze. Making sure to maintain their card advantage. You notice they stopped when they needed to stop, but they're back at it again now.
Yeah, well, Silencing the Acolyte has kind of shown us a little bit more about Kallax's game plan, hasn't it? Like, he is not anticipating having any chance of winning this in fatigue. Yeah. He's going to play it the other way and try and reduce China's card draw, make sure they never get to the rest of these big removal tools. Like that one, actually. Reckless Flurry is not too bad. It's not actually too bad here when you think about it.
I was wondering if this is your chance to use it. I think you... No, I don't want to think.
Well, if he armors up this turn and then plays that, he's only losing 6 armor from it, which isn't that bad. Problem is he's sort of dealing with a board full of nothing. So there's the opportunity, but it's not that incredible in terms of target.
So if you can clear it up some other way this turn, which looks like there's options, and gain 4 armor, all in 1 turn, and then next turn he can gain 4 armor and Reckless Flurry maybe an 8/8, which, you know, we were saying earlier they're very difficult to deal with for this deck.
Right.
They can do 7 quite easily, but not so much 8. So taking that on board, he's using a different way of clearing to protect the Flurry. But now he has to sort of protect the armor as well. Told you Baku was fine. 7/8.
Yep. It's a shame there's not 4 armor there as well.
Yeah, that is the pity, right? That's exactly what you were pointing out. If you could armor up at the same time as Baku and then take another 4 next turn, then you'd be in a great position.
However, as you correctly said, 7/8 is not bad.
It's not.
In this situation, 7/8 is not looking too bad at all. I can't believe that Sun Fury Protector is still just sitting there. That was played.
Chilling.
That was played on turn 6. It's
yeah,
now
and
turn
it looks kind of weird. They just looked an awkward card at the time.
And it goes to show it's done its job well.
Yeah, it really has. 3 turns of a 2/3 surviving, 6 damage wherever you like. Please. Calyx is super calm all times.
I wonder. We're almost out of time.
Bowmare time. You can tell they don't like it. Yeah, he's got that same hand gesture he had a few turns ago, which is like, well, someone tell me something. Someone make the call. What are we doing?
Well, maybe that's a case of him disagreeing with the decision that the others had made.
Yeah, I think it gets to the point where it's 2 versus 1 or whatever, and he doesn't mind.
I'll go with this if this is what you guys are saying, but down to 15 health. Now we're back in the place with Hearthstone with Control Warrior, where actually health versus armor does matter. But now the warrior wants to keep its health as high as possible and sort of rather keep his armor low.
That's really weird, but it's also very true.
Because back in the old days, it was like, oh, because of Alexstrasza, you want your health to be as low as possible and your armor to be as high as possible. Now, because of Reckless Flurry, like, you want to be able to play that card and then still have some health remaining after that. If you're just sacrificing 40 armor because you've been prioritizing that over health, you've only got 3 health left, you can just not play Reckless Flurry. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. I think people, for the longest time, didn't really like it much. And it still doesn't get huge amounts of play. It is a very punishing card, but it's also an incredibly powerful one. Hence, it makes its way into some decks in the right situations, like this one. Just keeping an eye on the hands all the way through this. And for the first time, really, Trunks has managed to get his hand size somewhere approaching the French hand size. It's still not really great, but...
Silencing that Acolyte made a big difference. Blood Reaver Gul'dan drawn there now. France have made it clear that they are not even thinking about fatigue as part of their strategy, but that doesn't mean that this isn't the turn for Blood Reaver Gul'dan. 3 damage a turn, even if it's just dealing with minions on the board or helping, isn't bad at all.
I think I prefer Hellfire to Twilight first to set it up, though.
You're right. Hellfire this turn is so clean. Even Defire wouldn't be too bad. There isn't one in the hand, but it's funny how clearable Trunks' board is.
Clearable. You've been with me way too long, Dan. They could also, if they decide they are going to go for the Hellfire play, they could also tap and try and find a Defile. Gives them an option. But they've first got to decide if they are going to go with that play. They are.
It's just a clean way. It's just a very easy way to do things. Can even put the Gastrobot up if he doesn't mind that being destroyed by the weapon.
Shields up.
This is fine too.
Interesting, the Protector's protecting one thing here, herself.
Interesting.
Sun Fury coward.
Hang on a second.
Oh, you've...
I'm looking at the Azalina. So the second Gore Howl is obviously great. Is anything else in the hand really that good?
What now?
Could maybe they equip the second Gore Howl and then play Azalina next turn?
Maybe.
I mean, again, we have caster vision. We can see they'd get the Spellstone, they'd get the Lich King, they'd get a Black Knight, which would deal with the other Lich King, and they'd get Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
I'd like to see it happen because, to me, Azalina always has the same issue, which is every single time the same, unless it's in a Togwag or silly deck, which is your opponent has the same cards as you.
What is it with these Sun Fury Protectors?
She's really good at hide and seek. So your opponent has the same cards as you, but they get to go first with them.
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing issue for me in this card.
Maybe it's not as good as I thought it was, though, because Gul'dan isn't, like... Gul'dan's not an improvement over the Warrior Hero power, is it?
And it's kind of the same deal as well. Your opponent's deck is built to have a Gul'dan in it, and yours is not.
No, it is an improvement.
It is. It's 6 swing instead of 4, so that is a thing.
It's not armor, though. Is that? Well, it's important for the Reckless Flurry. Either way, it doesn't look like Trunks is going to get a chance to steal that with the Azalina. He will now know that if he'd played Azalina last turn, he would have got it. Now it's too late.
One thing I really like about Gul'dan being in play is it means your opponents are going to struggle to get the armor to be able to use the Shield Slam or Reckless Flurry on your Lich King.
Reckless Flurry is being used right now, isn't it?
Yes, you would think so. Just check the pack first. It's not Shudderwock, so you've got space in your hand for 5 cards.
Swamp King Dread. Curious Glimmerroot, okay.
I remember that card. They used to play that back in the day.
It's not a Discover effect.
I used to get that wrong every time because I'm like that.
Well, now Azalina's definitely not happening for quite a while. There's no way that Trunks wants to give up this hand. A point I was going to make about Azalina, actually. See the Spellstone in France's hand? Although Azalina doesn't currently copy upgrades, the Spellstone is considered a different card.
Okay.
So it actually would copy the upgraded Spellstone.
Okay.
And
Or something we're going to have to get used to when patch 12.0, I think it is, comes out.
Amazed you have that memorized. Good job.
I can't remember what the patch does, I just remember the number.
Well, that's the good stuff. What else do we need to know? Hero power away, the Glimmer Room plus the Lich King looks like a very safe way to go here. There aren't many in-go cards that can clean up the Lich King immediately. The only one that springs to mind is Valspine Slayer.
Could you possibly play the Giant before the Lich King to see if they can kill an 8/8 and then play the Lich King after? So they've got one less way of killing you 8/8.
Bloody decisions.
The Lich King is obviously higher impact. And... Oh, just going to interrupt this broadcast with a quick message. Netherlands is currently 0-1 against Turkey. That's my team! Netherlands, please!
It's down to team. But yeah, they go for the immediate impact of the Lich King as you were about to describe there just before your team decided to start tanking.
Come on, Theo, you promised me.
He did, I was there.
And the other issue with playing the Mountain Giant first and then the Lich King would be essentially giving China one more turn to find a way of dealing with it.
Sure. That's a very good point.
But there is one way of dealing with this Lich King from what I can see, and that is Gore Howl and then the Rush minion. 10 mana, tanking 8 damage, putting himself down to 6, and having to end the turn like that. It's not pretty.
You say that again?
I don't see another way of clearing it either.
Huh.
Oh, well, okay, Defile plus the face tank with the weapon. But that still involves a face tank with a weapon.
Still, yeah, the bit that we're trying to avoid here is face tanking with a weapon.
That's the part that, yeah.
That's the part that actually matters. Because they are getting super low.
I don't.
This deck does go super low, though.
There's no other way of clearing this. It looks like he's putting himself in a tough spot, but is there any other way to win the game? He's going to try and find another way to win the game. But now that the Lich King has been played and Gul'dan has been played, this is much worse than what it would have been earlier.
Doom Pact, a thing. This is interesting now because this is pure maths for this one turn. You know exactly what your opponent has got in their hand. You know exactly what they can deal with. And you know they can't deal with a Mountain Giant.
That's one of the most interesting things about Azalina.
And
It's something I always forget about, like when I see the card played. It's like, oh yeah, they actually should both know what is in the other's hand now.
Yeah.
And that's where the Lich King is going to be. Sorry, the Black Knight's going to be quite interesting in dealing with the Lich King.
Yes. And they know about this.
But not yet.
Told you they should have played the Mountain Giant first.
If they played the Mountain Giant first, then China would have stolen the Lich King and had their own. There's no way to play around that, though.
Damn it, I can't win
Well,
this.
they could have played around that. It would have been difficult. I am just surprised to see Azalina played immediately after the Ungoro pack. That's and I'm sure that's something that will be surprising Team France as well.
So, I think, yeah, what I thought was wrong, so I'm not even going to bother. He's going to Spellbreaker the Lich King to get rid of the taunt to play around the Black Knight. Okay, who needs Lich King cards?
The plays! This is amazing!
So it's going to get Doom Pact, but that doesn't matter because the Black Knight's just going to get nothing done and then the Mountain Giant's going to come to play.
Yeah. All that France have done really by silencing the Lich King is prevented that big tempo swing from China. And again, there are still options. There's still the 7 damage Spellstone in China's hand. Like you said, there's Doom Pact, which isn't a big problem for Team China. They're still winning the game if it gets into fatigue. Town Crier gets milled, Rapid Worgen gets milled. That's still not the end of the world.
Keep an eye on those number of cards totals. We said it wouldn't go to fatigue most likely. And France do have 3 fewer cards, but their hero power is better head-to-head in a straight fatigue fight than China's is.
Yeah.
Probably won't come to that, but, you know, just got to keep an eye on that now. It's getting that close.
The hero power is better until you're at 30 health, right? And then it's
Sure,
worse.
if you're at 30 health, you're probably winning, unless you're starting the race from 30 health,
Yeah,
in which case, yeah, sure.
this is going to be the best Black Knight that France is going to get in a little while. And again, apart from the shield block, they know exactly what's in China's hand.
Yeah.
There's Dire Horn Hatchling in China's deck, but otherwise I don't think there's anything worth holding on to the Black Knight for. There are no other taunts. Oh, there's another Stonehill Defender in there somewhere. Maybe that could get something worthwhile. I don't know. I think the Black Knight is looking fine here, and the hero power.
My hunger grows.
It is a minion that is awkward to deal with, but not too awkward, I guess. France being meticulous. I think they've roped every single turn this game. That's how it feels. Can't blame them for that.
Gonna go with the Giant instead. Okay. Save the Black Knight for one of the Stonehills later.
And still going to take the opportunity to set up the Gastropod. It does get Black Knighted, but if they Black Knighting, you're hitting him for 8. One way or another.
I mean, the Warlock deck has more targets for the Black Knight anyway. There's still a Hooked Reaver somewhere in there. And then again, France still have almost 30 health, so that Hooked Reaver's not going to have Taunt.
Yeah, good job, France, on not drawing that when you didn't need it.
So maybe this is the best Black Knight target. It's so weird because they both know what's in each other's hands for the most part. As Trunks does pick up the Stonehill Defender, so Kallax will be a little bit rewarded for holding onto that Black Knight, depending on what comes out of it.
And fast forwarding to the very end of this game, that Doom Pact can be used as a clear once they're in fatigue without any punishment. So they get a little bit behind. If France get a little bit behind, they can stop the final push from China with that if they plan it out correctly.
France would have expected this turn. Again, he knew what all of the cards were. Now Hooked Reaver gets drawn. It's pretty useless. Black Knight isn't useful this turn either.
And this is where the hero power of the warrior, they've got quite a while still to start accumulating armor. And it's going to start forcing France to put things on the board earlier than they want to.
Again, this issue, like we've said that overall the Warlock hero power is better, but Kallax is almost at 30, and when he's at 30, he's dealing 3, but the warrior's healing 4.
And they're actually getting the 4, and you're not getting the 3.
Exactly.
So, again, forced into making some sort of move to put something on the board. This is just a 4-4 for 4.
Bloody decisions.
I'm really struggling with this. Feeling the pressure, I think. And it just goes wide as he can with his weak core minions. Knowing that a couple turns ago, Trunks didn't have any way of removing everything.
Yeah.
The best thing he had was the Doom Pact. Has he drawn something since then? It's time to find out.
Hasn't. Nothing spectacular, at least.
I'm amazed the second Gorehowl was never played as well. That card seemed vital in controlling the board over the next 6 or 7 turns, but no, China favoured just dropping Azalina and taking France's hand.
I think they might have felt they were running out of time. It looked really grim for them at the time, and it still does look pretty grim.
Doesn't look good, does it?
Do they have to shield block now? Catch up even further in fatigue?
I would imagine part of the Azalina on that turn was taking Death Knight cards too. They knew there was a Death Knight card in the hand, they didn't know which one it was. They thought, hey, that's better than my average card. I'll take that and hope for the best.
They do, so now the fatigue war is kind of close, given what we've said about the hero powers. Probably close enough that France are comfortable. I think what France will be discussing here is you see a fairly animated Kallax is like, is the fatigue plan working? Put somebody now to keep an eye on fatigue plan. If you're not sure that's your plan. If you are sure that's your plan, put somebody else on now to start going with the win the game plan.
The fact that Trunks isn't able to deal with this board, though, is helping things considerably
Yes.
for Kallax's plan, because now he can just trade in the snail, hero power it, and go face with the 2-4 attack minions, putting China back down to 21 without even really having to think about the rest of his turn.
The bits he's got to think about is how many minions do I want down in case of top decks. So sure, that's a nice setup, and I think you just leave it. Just leave 8 up. Remember, you are only doing 4 a turn at that point.
There's still a second Reckless Flurry in the deck somewhere. There's still a second Brawl in the deck somewhere. So Trunks does have board clears.
Obviously, the reason they took so long to do the first part, there, even though that's the part we all knew was happening, is they were deciding whether they play the homunculus, because if they play that, they need to be healed back up to 30, of course. Or as close to it as they can. Shield slam. Meh. Getting the mountain giant down now while they still can, because the hand size is decreasing rapidly. Leave it any longer, it's just going to become a pain.
Wow. It's going to deal with a 1-1 weapon.
Well done, Swampoos. You got there.
My hunger grows.
Trunks down to 4 cards, but they're still... With the Stonehill, with the faces, things can definitely still kick off here.
Spellstone has got to be a consideration here, but then health during fatigue also has to be a consideration. I guess Defile first, then Spellstone to deal with the minion. That allows Kallax to hero power the face, dealing even more damage, because if it's just Spellstone and hero power the minion, then he's only dealing 4 to the face. If he's Defiles and Spellstones the minion, he can hero power the face and deal 7 damage.
It does feel like as well all that face damage you're referring to, they haven't been able to get much face damage in over the last few turns. They've been dealing with their own minions from the Azalina a little bit.
Yeah.
But it also feels like China have been forced into doing a lot of things they didn't want to do. So, still advantage France, I feel.
This Black Knight is going to be vital for France as well. Like, I criticised them earlier for not playing it when they knew that, that there was the only minion with Taunt in the hand there. But now there's Stonehill Defender, now Dialon Hatchling's been drawn as well. Kallax's Dark Knight is going to be... Sorry, Black Knight is going to be... wrong Knight!
Black Knight rises.
Ooh, Alfire is more damage. Not quite there yet, though. Doompact's going to be great once he's out of cards as well.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been looking forward to in terms of how close it's got in fatigue. But if China can sneak an extra 2 or 3 hero powers that don't get dealt with in, that fatigue race is going to be mighty close.
Quick point here. If we're genuinely worrying about fatigue, if that's something China's concerned about, Daihon Hatchling, Faceless Manipulator. That's 2 more cards shuffled into the deck. I don't think France can beat that in fatigue.
And they might have to just do that anyway, actually, because they don't seem to have any threats left and they need to stop themselves from dying. And that could force an early Doom Pact, which would actually work really well.
I mean, honestly, Trunks could just play those cards now just to get them shuffled into the deck guaranteed.
He could in terms of the fatigue race, but then he might possibly be struggling in terms of not dying to minions, because he hasn't got many ways to deal with it. One way to deal with it is just put big blockers in the way. But you might be right, because he's going to draw them really soon.
How good's Darius here? Dealing with the Doomsayer, hitting the Black Knight, then hitting Darius. Darius becomes a 5-mana 6/6.
That was good.
Can even Faceless the Darius, put the 6/6 into the Shroom Brewer. That becomes an 8/8.
You can also silence the Doomsayer and Darius things and just start hitting face and say, hey, France, you're out of stuff.
Okay. I think Facelessing the Direhorn Hatchling's too important, but I couldn't help but think about the Facelessing the Darius play, because that becomes a little bit insane this turn. But he knows there's a Doom Pact in the hand, so it's not something that he can work too hard on. These aren't cards. Well, they are. They're not Direhorn Hatchling, which is what China's looking for.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is going to stop them from dying in fatigue. And France still have a giant left? I feel like they don't. Sorry, I'm just checking, sort of thinking out loud.
I don't think they do. They do have a second hooked Reaver though.
They do.
That's not going to be a 7/7 for about until it's too late. That's not going to be a 7/7 until it's too late. Now, what I really do like about the Darius turn now is that France have to consider Doom Pacting. There's not many other ways of dealing with the board. They can Hellfire and ping Darius, I guess. But then what are they doing about the Black Knight?
Yeah, they also know that the Dragonhorn Hatchling and the Faceless play is coming, I think.
They could play their own Black Knight and deal with the Stonehill and then trade and ping with Darius.
Also, you've got to Yeah, they're not going to win fatigue, are they? Because of that reason. So how are they going to win?
I must feed now.
Remember, they did silence that Acolyte of Pain all the way back on about turn 4. And we concluded they were never going to be in a position to win on fatigue. Well, that was kind of correct, but then the Doom Pact happened from the Azalina and threw it all back in the melting pot again.
That Phantom Militia is going to do a lot of work because Kallax can't deal with it.
What is a melting pot anyway?
A pot that melts.
It's not a very good pot then.
It's probably not very useful, no.
Why would you throw things in that?
A pot to melt things in?
Okay, we're getting there. Why would you melt things in a pot? I guess melting them on the floor is messy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, we have vials here, science vials, that we prefer to melt things in.
That's a very good point. Yeah,
Tips.
I'll go with that.
Tips from Boom Labs.
Don't melt pots, melt in pots.
Exactly.
That's the sort of thing they'd get wrong at Boom Labs. Hey, look at this melting pot. Oh, it's just dribbled all over the floor. Sorry, too late. Time since last access at 0 minutes.
We'll ask the Flute. He'll know.
Right,
Mr. Flute.
they're playing the faces onto the Direhorn, and like you were pointing out, this means that winning in fatigue is going to be almost impossible for France.
It just had to happen. This seems like a game-winning play to me.
So I'm looking at the worlds where the hatchlings don't get redrawn quickly. If you Doom Pact now and then something, but...
Well, Shield Block will help China to draw the hatchlings quickly if they wanted to, but honestly, Trunks is just going to want to avoid playing that card entirely if he can.
Is there any way... No, there's not. Sorry, I'm going crazy. So look, there's any way France can leave up the 2/3/6s so as to give more fatigue damage. They just die way too quickly.
Yeah. Playing the Doom Pact now so that he doesn't suffer the negative consequences of the card. Gonna put out the ooze so we can fit the hero power in, but that Phantom Militia is going to do all of the work that China needs it to just protect Trunks from any more face damage from Kallax's minions.
Yeah, and I think it was important they waited that long with the Doom Pact, but no longer, because this way at least Trunks can pick up bad cards. Otherwise he just picks up the 6/9 taunts, and that's the end of that, the Matriarchs. As it stands though, Phantom Militia will buy some more time. Bit awkward in this deck, Phantom Militia.
Yes, yeah. However, in this situation, when having 3 taunts on the board is probably better than hero powering,
Yeah.
it's not bad.
Because the third one absorbs 4 damage either way you cut it, and sometimes you overkill it so it absorbs even more than 4 you would have gained in armor, so yeah.
And you know, like in theory, Trunks knows exactly what Kallax's remaining cards are. They had access to the deck lists.
Yeah, there's 4 of them. It's not just Trunks versus France.
That'd be a little bit unfair, wouldn't it?
Depends what they're fighting on, really.
Trunks versus France.
Depends what game.
Coming to a tavern near you.
You really would be a tavern hero if you like take on a whole tavern.
Our whole country.
But yeah, surely someone in China's team will be there to keep an eye on remaining decks. It's as similar as having, even if you go old-fashioned, a list and a pen.
My hunger grows.
You can be as hungry as you like, Vladimir Gul'dan. I think, well, while there's plenty of food still on the board, you can't get through it all on time.
No, this Black Knight, you pointed out a play quite a while ago where they could have Black Knighted a Gastropod.
Yeah, that's right.
And it would have pushed like 4 or 5 damage. Don't know if that would have been enough, but they didn't do it, and the Black Knights ended up just doing nothing.
It's so difficult to judge how the game would have gone.
Of course, yeah.
Because they played a Mountain Giant instead. Maybe the Black Knight would have been removed with the tool that was used for Mountain Giant. Maybe it wouldn't have been, as China did know that both of those tools were there and they were able to play around it. It's very complicated to assess without actually looking back and rewatching the game. However, something has gone wrong for Kallax this game, and it's very hard to pinpoint what it is. The Trunks' Gorehound did very well, did a lot of work in the early part of the game, just dealing minion after minion. But then Trunks wasn't able to play the second Gorehound because he played Azalina, which helped a bit. I don't think Azalina really helped that much.
Still just keeping an eye on this fatigue, but they're not far enough ahead on health, I don't think. Yeah, China making sure to get some damage into face here, and I think that's enough, even with the Shroomba and the ping.
It's just clearing the board now, isn't it? Reckless Flurry. Lose 5 armor, but reduce France's ability to ever hit the first again.
And the big game hunter comes down to just to challenge whatever's played next. Saves them doing 3 to the face.
I was wondering then about maybe Black Knight in the face because he knows that the game hunter can't portray efficiently, but he knows there's the big taunt.
Yeah, he's going to Black Knight the first one of those and actually connect for 4 as well. We may have called it a little bit early. It's been known before.
France have been consistently dealing damage with this Even Warlock deck throughout the whole game. They got the Gul'dan down nice and early. They've been picking the face at every possible opportunity.
I mean, China have gained something like 25 turns. No, let's say 22 turns-ish of 4. They may have missed 1 or 2. Let's say 20. That's 80 they've gained. Roughly over the course of the game, give or take. In round numbers.
You can't deal 80 damage in a game of Hearthstone. It's just not possible.
France done more than 80. They've got them below the starting health.
Wow.
So that's a lot. That's without Shudder Watts.
Second time this game, but other side of the board now. The owl being used to get rid of the taunt and prevent the Black Knight from destroying it.
Kalax is whistling to himself.
I said this earlier when Kalax did this. I'll say it again now. Chunks has done it. The plays!
Indeed. And what do you even do now?
Does he have to drop the Black Knight anyway? Because he has no minion to attack with next turn otherwise?
Look, you know there's another one. There's only 2 cards left. And you've got to be able to kill the second one or you've lost.
Yeah, but the problem is,
I
doesn't he
understand.
just lose now if he doesn't deal the damage with it? Because if we work this out, right, like next turn, the 6/9 just trades into it.
That's fine, because if you ping it now and then ping it again next turn, you've killed it for your 4/4.
Oh, okay, yep.
And then you can kill the other one with your Black Knight, and they know what the other card is, and we're casters.
I'm with you. That's another way to go.
I'm almost out of cards.
Soul of the Gorgon, no way!
Okay.
Well, now it's just unwinnable. They can't deal with 3 of these matriarchs.
Can they not, though? I mean...
No, Lorinda, they can't. They can't
Please
do
let
it.
me.
It's not possible.
Ooh.
This is 8 mana, summon another one, still manage to tank up as well. And have 1 more remaining in the deck. There's just no way.
Okay. I'm just going humph and okay because I've got nothing.
You're really not convinced, are you?
I'm convinced, but I'm trying not to be. I don't like it when people are right and I'm not.
I mean, China know that that's the Black Knight, don't they?
Yeah.
They can just dump both Direhorn Matriarchs on the board. Game's just over.
Yeah.
Because Kalax can deal with one of them, the other one just finishes it, and then he goes face every turn.
I'm just wondering why they haven't conceded.
I'm wondering.
So I'm going to go humph and a yeah until I work it out.
Yeah. Yep.
Game number 5 looks interesting though. If you're Chinese.
Yeah.
Take 5.
There we go. All right, France concedes. That's not a good position for France to be in. Yes, they won an unfavorable matchup earlier, but now they've lost this one. China looking strong going into Game 5.
Hard to hit that concede button when there's 4 of you. Anyone who's ever done a co-op will realise what it's like to go concede, and then somebody in the background goes, but... And it's like just way too late. You just hit the button and somebody's found some 1 in a million chance to get out of it. So you're always going to see these games, or often going to see these games go a turn or two too long in that regard, I feel.
Yeah, and again, I want to look back at what went wrong for the even lock, and it's very difficult to sort of maths that out, as it was a very long game and there were lots of micro decisions. Maybe it's less a question of what went wrong for them and what went right for the warrior.
I mean, the Azalina seemed to go well for them. They copied a lot of stuff, and their deck hasn't got a lot of stuff. It's a card that I've generally not liked, but there did seem that the amount of minions they copied was able to help them get over the line just by trading 1 for 1 with the opponents, basically.
Again, the timing of it was surprising to me because he had just played Elise, played the pack from Elise, filled up his hand, and also had another Gorehowl in there. So there was a lot of stuff they threw away, which I was surprised by. But as you said, it worked out, and China were able to take that. Again, I will say, unfavorable matchup. Next up, it's going to be Token Druid on China's side versus Death Rattle Hunter for France. Not going to be easy for France at all. Find out if they can do it after this. It all comes down to Token Druid versus Death Rattle Hunter. We saw this matchup once today already in the Spain game, and the Token Druid was able to take it away quite convincingly, just able to go really wide on the board before the Hunter can actually do anything about it.
Yeah, it really didn't look good at all for the Hunter when we saw it earlier. So if France are going to get it done, they're going to have to win another highly unfavoured matchup. But if anyone can do it, France can do it. They've done it once already in this match. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it, but it's not the easiest thing to approach.
It's not the easiest thing to approach at all. Just skimming down the list one more time. There is a Void Ripper,
Okay.
so dealing with spreading plagues will be possible. But
here's a way of doing it. Make an egg.
make an egg, crack an egg open.
Yeah.
Sometimes a big 5/5 comes out.
But you've got to find a way of doing it. How much of this do you keep?
So we were having a debate this morning about whether or not you
Right.
keep tracking amongst the casters, and my suggestion was if you have nothing to play on turn 2 or turn 3, maybe you keep it for a higher chance
Right.
of getting something to play on turn 2, turn 3. However, the egg is there already.
However, you keep the tracking because I think you're looking. I think this is where you're
Yeah.
going. It's going to cut you off though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was
You're
gonna
digging
go with the
specifically
next,
for an
yeah.
exact card or two
Right.
here. So
So now tracking is very likely to get the Play Dead or the Terra Scale Stalker, so it's even better than when I was talking.
yeah, it's because you know what you're looking for is
Yeah.
the key. If you know what you're looking for, tracking's a pretty good card. If you're trying to guess what you're looking for, like for later,
Now, this is a little bit dicey because Candle Shot is so good against 1/1s.
I think if the 1/1s come down, a lot of the time, it's not like they see the discards. So it's not 2 burn cards. They're just gone. So China don't know you've lost it, which helps a little bit. Yeah, but as you can see there, the look from Kalax is like, why?
One thing I will say is that what went well for the Hunter that we saw earlier is they got Firefly on turn 1, they got, Keleseth on turn 2, they were able to actually start putting things on the board immediately. They had 1/2s that were able to trade with the 1/1s, but unfortunately for Kalax, if Chunks wants to, this turn he can innovate out Whispering Woods, summon 5 1/1s to the board, and Kalax can't deal with any of them. So if Chunks was to go this turn, Whispering Wood, into Soul of the Forest next turn, that would be game-winning.
Yeah, I think you're right. However, he has got no buffs for them, so they would get picked off bit by bit.
And there's no
fast
Soul of the
run.
Forest as well, which is the vital.
And there's no Soul of the Forest. And also, by innovating it out, you lose quite a bit of stuff.
1/1. Okay, Netherlands have got to win on the board. I am happy with that.
I'm sure you are.
I don't want 1 and 2 to be my scoreline, though. We have Italy playing tomorrow.
Oh, not confident in Italy?
I'm very confident, but I want my score to be 3 and 1 now. I want my score to be 4 and 0, but that's not possible anymore.
Oh dear. No, same. It's all right.
The production team just told me that everything is possible.
That's it. Always believe, Dan.
Don't think
Always believe. Stop being such a pessimist. I've told you this many times.
I don't think anything that is going on right now is making sense. I don't think anything anyone is saying makes sense anymore.
Talking of which, you watched too many of my casts. Lots of damage coming out here from France. This early gambit of going for the egg. Synergy is working.
It is.
I spat all those words out, almost one at a time.
But because now Kalax is in the position where he can start to deal with them one-on-one. He can trade all of his, or both of them, his minions that can attack into them. He's got a flanking strike to deal with 3. And suddenly Whispering Woods just being 3 1/1s doesn't quite have the same impact.
I mean, there is another one.
There it is.
They don't know that, and also, as far as they're concerned, France have got a lot of stuff to worry about here.
The thing is, there is another one, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to do the same thing, isn't it? It's going to be played, and France will pick off 3 of the Wisps one by one.
I mean, this is a way of Trunks not dying quickly as well, because if they didn't do anything, get hit in the face for 10 with a hero power, 8 plus a minion development, that's no fun. And what could happen here is this could almost bait France into going wide, and then they walk into Spreading Plague.
Right.
Moves quickly.
Sort of like this. Okay. Going to be a lot going on for France, though, even with a Spreading Plague coming down very soon. Look how nicely worked this out was. Words in the right order, please, Neil. This swipe plus the trade is just going to deal with nearly all of this.
Yeah. I've just been looking at the other plays while you've been talking about that, though. And like Oaken Summons to get out Violet Teacher, then Innovate out Power of the Wild is also not looking like the worst play. It doesn't deal with the board, though.
So they have the choice between basically clearing the immediate issues
Yeah,
or starting to generate issues of their own.
exactly.
And actually they can still trade in the buff 2/2s, but they're left with not a lot. Well, innovate, Power of the Wild.
Well, they get the 4/6 Violet Teacher
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, not the easiest choice.
It's a tough turn. Multiple ways to go. I mean, I am in favour of this one.
I think so,
That's why
yeah.
I pointed it out, just because the Token Druid needs to take a more aggressive stance on the game. It's down to them to win by going as wide and as big as they can early. As in the late game, it is the Hunter that can pile on the aggression after events with Rexar.
So they cared about one minion, but not the other. This has left up some really awkward-looking trades here.
I mean, yeah, if France want to deal with Violet Teacher, on the board they'd have to trade in both minions,
Yeah.
or they could play the Hunter's
Mark and Chain Gang looks like it deals with a lot of problems, though.
Uh-huh.
But they don't know there is no more buff. From where Kalax is sitting, this is just not fun. I mean, it's fun because he's playing Hearthstone for a living in front of thousands of people for his country.
Right.
But this particular game of Hearthstone isn't as much fun as some of the others.
I'm trying to work out how all-in Trunks has gone here, because he sort of is, but sort of isn't. There's still a Whispering Woods in the hand, there's
Right.
still a Spreading Plague to fall back on. But the problem is he's only got 5 mana, and there's no way of drawing more cards yet. So without an Ultimate Infestation, he's in trouble. That's not the play we pointed out.
They're going to go at it. It's just going to be a fight.
Just who can come up with the biggest, widest board?
You've got more stuffs that do things than you have.
Does Kalax have to play around double Savage Roar here, or is that unrealistic?
I think they may have decided it's just not there.
Oh, wait, or if it's there, they lose.
Yeah, I think that people lose a lot of games by doing that sort of thing, but he has bailed at the last second by the look of this.
I really think this is better, because this does play around the double Savage Roar, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And it's almost as good a board. The problem with it now is this Stalker doesn't get played for some time. That was I think why that took so long.
2/2s don't trade very well with 2/3s.
No, but swipe to the face deals with the entire board.
Yeah, I mean a swipe to one of the Sonic Chain Gangs would mean that they can deal with the board even easier.
Actually, isn't it naughtier than that? You just trade in one of each minion into the Chain Gangs and then drop the Plague.
Ooh, that is naughty. Yeah.
I think. Because then you're just challenging with your 1/5s at actually doing something.
So
You do give away you've got no buffs to some extent that way, though.
they'd only get 3 1/5s. I wonder if they could go for a more powerful Spreading Plague later on. That would be the only reason I could think not to do that.
Well, this actually gives you the board as well, the way they're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is what I was saying earlier, like swiping the Spreading Plague,
Yeah.
one trade there, one trade there, and then, yeah, 2 2/2s remaining, now I said it, remaining to deal some damage.
And the Savage Roar making it pretty dangerous to be around Hunterville at this time of year.
And that's a big deal as well, as Kalax doesn't have a way of dealing with either of these 2/2s. Terrascale Stalker summons a 5/5, great, sure. Can't be played with any other minions, that's a problem. High main, it's a Savannah high main, that's awesome. Not so great if France is just dead immediately. 1 Savage Roar represents 6 damage, 2 Savage Roar represents 12 damage, 12, 14, 16 total. So China's not quite there.
But if they're not dead, next turn is Shore and Terrascale.
Right.
And everything goes completely crazy. Is there going to be a next turn, though? Tune in next turn to find out.
Well, yeah, I mean, there will be, because double Savage Roar is still not lethal from Trunks,
Sure.
even if it were drawn now. Trunks may decide to go wide here, though, and try and set up the Savage Roar by summoning 4 more Wisps. I mean, again, if there's no Rexar, the Wisps are difficult to deal with. If France does draw Rexar now, they just win.
Maybe. Difficult decisions. Funnily enough, this game's quite a lot easier when you can see both hands. This particular matchup, I mean, Hearthstone's a lot easier. You can see both hands, of course it is, but this particular matchup is one of those that's really exaggerated by that, I think.
I'd rather just have to play one hand, though. Like, if I could just play one hand of Hearthstone and see my opponent's hand, that'd be even easier.
Yeah. But France now have to deal with enough of these to just not die next turn.
They've made their strategy clear. They're just, because they can't rely on drawing card draw, they just want to win this game as quickly as possible. So they're going as wide as they possibly can, relying on Savage Raw. Maybe they can draw a branching path, maybe they can draw the second Savage Raw.
Do they need the second Savage Raw? Just mathsing. I can't maths very well. It's 9 from the minions, 2 from the... We're killing off 3 of these minions, right? So there's 3 left over. Oh, we're killing off the... It's alright.
Yeah, because of that.
Get the extra minions from the high main. Cool.
It's just slightly better than using it
It's
on
a
the...
lot better because you don't die.
So, ooh, my Furion's not too bad, actually. And this is another turn where China can consider trading in and then playing the spreading play.
But with Shaw up.
Yeah, sure is an issue. And with the cubes available, 1 cube available to play next turn. So Savage Raw on its own is 9 damage. Savage Raw plus swipe is 12, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they played... I
mean, Chunks is really close here. He could just go Savage Raw, swipe the face, next turn win with Malfury and Hero Power.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he decides that's good.
It sets up the 2-turn lethal. Does this still do that? It doesn't still do that, does it? What? How is this better?
Well, swipe and normal Hero Power still does it, I think is the point.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. I'm overthinking things, trying to squeeze Malfurion into it. You're right. Swipe and Hero Power would be lethal.
11. 15. There's a lot of damage here, but it's not quite enough. It's nowhere near enough, but relative to 36, it's not quite enough. No taunt available. No anything available, I want to say. But Shaw says my minions can attack. Why can't my egg attack? It could have traded itself off by now if it could attack. Silly egg.
If only eggs could attack. That's what I think at breakfast.
Wow, then I'd be terrified. Nothing they can do here, except try and set up lethal for next turn and clear up the 1/1s and hope there's no swipe. But they know in their heart of hearts what's coming. Such a crazy amount of damage.
A real valiant effort as we finally see the Sylvana high mains do the thing for France.
But he knows.
They know exactly what's happened. There's no way that China would have made such a strange play with the Savage Raw if it hadn't set up the 2-turn lethal. Here it is. Hero Power followed by swipe. China are going to be going 2-0 in the Hearthstone Global Games Swiss. Calax and Team France have to go and lick their wounds. They're 1-1.
1-1. China go to 2-0. Much better start for China than last year. And, you know, they lost that first matchup, but still managed to keep it together, get it done. And we're not seeing much of the Chinese team this year in terms of the webcams and stuff, but it feels from how the play's progressing, the speed of play and the plays they're making, that they're working pretty well this time around.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember rightly, they played together a lot last year. I believe they were gathered at certain events where they'd met and staying in hotels and whatever, and were competing together there. So they do work very hard. They do work together. They make a great team, the Chinese players. I believe there are a lot of team events that happen over there, actually.
They definitely used to be. I think there's still 1 or 2 now, and they have Gold Series several times a year, and a lot of that clashed last year. But let's have a look at the tail of the tape.
There's the tail, and a sad one for France, who were able to win the first unfavourable matchup, but then they did end up losing the one that was close to 50-50, and China winning the other favourable matchups were able to take it. And Odemian did say to me that they were confident after the picks and bans phase, but then after that they felt like they'd lost a few of their chances leading into this part of the tournament, and yeah, they queued the unfavourable matchups, and in the end, ended up losing.
1-1 still a fairly decent position. That sounds crazy because it's only 50%, but again, 4-2 is the target for almost certain guarantees to go to the next round. Let's have a look at the highlights from that game.
Played fair, that was a highlight. That was certainly a highlight. This game, for me, was a highlight, actually.
Right.
It's quite a while ago now, but that Kingsbane, getting the Leeching Poison early, getting the Fan of Knives, getting the Vanish, getting the Blade Flurry. They just had everything they needed to win that matchup.
This was worked out nicely from China to get the exact 13 from this double Hellfire, and your 7-1 survives. They healed it up the turn before to make sure it wasn't going to die for this turn, and not a lot that France could do about that.
Lee there with the big spell mage in this practically impossible matchup. There's just no way to keep up with the armor gain, with the damage that the aggro mage deck is putting out. And then we get these amazing plays with the silences to prevent the Black Knight from going off on both sides of the board. We saw that play.
Well, when one side's done it, the other side can just go, oh yeah, that looks good.
Pretty good play. I'll try that myself.
Do some of that. I'm sure they'd have spotted it anyway, but you know what I mean.
And here it is. You're going to see here Trunks doing it himself, knowing that Kalax's final card was the Black Knight. And Kalax gives a real, like, he raised his eyebrows there, but yeah, okay, I should have seen this coming.
Yeah, that was a grueling match, and I think it's easy to underestimate how much you analyse so much but can still miss things in those huge matchups with loads of possibilities where it's all calculable in theory and there's so many cards to get into consideration. Eventually somebody just misses something. Not that they could have done anything about it, really.
Right. But there you go, tough game for France, not able to take it down in the end. And as you said, 1-1, it's still not that bad a position. They need to go 4-2, so they need to try and win 3 more series, really, over the next few weeks. And it's definitely doable. France is a very strong team, and they have a good network of players behind them, helping them prepare.
Okay, you made your point. We were a bit nasty to France. Well, we weren't nasty, we just left them off.
We're sorry, France!
And we got shouted at by all of France. And I think Dan's done a good job there of saying what we really feel.
We're sorry! All right, well, there are still 2 more series left to come, so don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone Global Games after this.